The Pineal Gland, Melatonin, and Melanin is a classic lecture given to us by Sister Deborah Ma'at Moore. Sister Ma'at has a very strong background in science and mathematics. In this presentation, she uses her knowledge and training to explain the relationship and importance of the pineal gland, the melatonin hormone, and the substance known as melanin. You will not find this information in high school or college, so give thanks to Sister Ma'at. Here she is addressing the pineal gland, melatonin, and melanin.
Say thank you for your participation. This is Sister Deborah Ma'at Moore. Her subject matter is going to be pineal gland and melatonin and its relation to us, people of color. She's Wayne State University, BS in Computer Science. She's also a mathematics instructor. And she's also a very awesome sister who has done her research extremely well on the pineal gland and melatonin, in addition to serotonin. I'd like to say give her a hand and welcome her here to Cultural City.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. I haven't been here in Atlanta in about 10 to 12 years, so it feels very good to be here in your lovely city with the beautiful sun. You don't get a whole lot of it. It feels very good. As the Sister Ma said, I'm going to discuss melanin, but I have to discuss that in order, because that's the way of Ma'at, is to do things in order. So first, I must go in the order of a discussion of the pineal gland or the pineal eye, then the hormone that it produces, melatonin, and lastly, the substance called melanin. And I have, first of all, in yellow, the enabler under the word pineal gland. And gland basically is an organ of the body that produces very, very important substances. But I nicknamed the pineal gland or the pineal eye the enabler because it enables us to do a number of very, very critical things. When we look at the function of the pineal gland, first of all, I have here that it's written as an inner eye. And by that I mean it doesn't see images like our two eyes, but it senses light and darkness. And as a result of sensing light and darkness, it helps us to go into another state. And I'll go into that in detail a little later on. The second one of its functions is that it functions as a clock, a biological clock. That means that it keeps track of time and it tells us what time it is, what time to do this, what time to do that, and etc. This is where most of the research is being done today on the function of the pineal eye or the pineal gland as a clock. The next thing it functions as is a pacemaker. It sets the pace for anything in the body that depends on time or speeds. It's like a brother or sister that is the head of a relay race, that is the head of a 4-team relay race or sprinters, that one person is set up in front to set the pace. And this is what the eye does, or the biological clock does. It sets the pace for all activities in the body that depend on time. The next critical thing that it is it's a compass. It actually gives us our direction. It helps us to orientate ourselves to our environment and to the environment of the world. And it's a secretory organ, meaning that it puts out or it secretes two hormones, one hormone during the day and the other hormone during the evening hours, melatonin. Melatonin, let's take a look at this one hormone. This hormone that's produced by the pineal eye is put out at night, really now. For the most part, it starts being produced in the human blood system in the nighttime. And this is why I call it the nighttime hormone. But I'm just going to give a brief introduction of melatonin, and get into this in a little detail later on. And the hormone that is produced during the daylight hours, starting at dawn, is a hormone called serotonin or serotonin. So as you can see, these hormones have got to have an inverse relationship with each other. One produced during the day and the other produced at night. So 9 times out of 10, they have directly or inversely opposite functions to each other. Now, I have over here an eye, a symbol in the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph language or of Medu Neter, an eye that they call the widget eye or the wadat eye. This was one of their terms for the pineal eye. Another term for the pineal eye is the uraeus. And I'm sure most of you have seen pictures of the Egyptian pharaohs with the little cobra at the top of the mask. That cobra was the symbol of protection. That was the symbolic pineal eye. So they called it the widget eye or the sound eye. Okay? And uraeus, meaning the snake or the cobra. And they also called it the eye of Heru. Heru at that time being comparable to Jesus the Christ. That was the Son of God. So these are the different terms that the ancient Egyptians had for this eye. That is the inner eye, and of late they have found that it's also a biological clock. It sets the pace. It helps us to orientate ourselves, to find our directions, and it also secretes the 2 hormones. Now, what types of people study the pineal eye, the inner eye? Let's take a look at the types of people that do research on this very important organ, because this is very important for us today. I think us as African people, we're realizing that we have to get more into the sciences. Not as though we weren't into that before, but because there's so much technology today, we're realizing that most of us that have children, we have to encourage our children and even us as adults to go into fields like biology, psychology, neurology. So one, and I probably should have left these letters up here. One person that deals with the pineal eye or that studies the pineal gland is the endocrinologist. And this is because on a medical level, the pineal eye is an endocrine gland because it secretes the hormone. The other people that do research on this very heavily are the molecular biologists. And these people are having a lot of controversy today in terms of the DNA that they experiment with and the substances that relate to the DNA. So the molecular biologists study the DNA, the genes that relate to the pineal gland or the pineal eye. Then we have the neurologist. These are the people that study the human brain and its functions. Also, psychiatrists and psychologists. Psychiatrists and psychologists, and also because of the study of the biological clock portion of the pineal gland, they have a new title or a new group of people today that are called chronobiologists. These are people that study time, because that gland is so much connected to rhythm and to timing. It has branched a new group of researchers called chronobiologists, and the new field is chronobiology, which is the study of time. So these are some of the people that deal with the pineal eye today and study it today. But thousands of years ago, the ancient Egyptian priests, who were the college professors studied this gland. Let's say the priest scholars, because they had colleges in ancient Kemet, and they did research in development, and their term for the priest or the college professor was the Keriheb, and it's spelled Keriheb. And they had three types of college professors, or three types of priests. They had those that dealt with law, those that dealt with medicine, and the Keriheb priests that were heavily into research and development. Okay. Now, what types of things impact or influence the biological clock? Let's take a look at the things that impinge on the biological clock. When we look at those types of things, we know that light greatly influences the functioning of the pineal gland. Also, temperature. Also, the type of food that we eat. And our thoughts. And more specifically, correct thoughts and behavior. All of these elements or factors have an impact on the pineal eye, and we can kind of highlight the knowledge from the ancient Kemetic educational system, which the Greeks called the mystery systems. And it's difficult to say why they named it this. Maybe they meant it was something that had to be revealed, or something that was a puzzle. And I'm sure that much of the heavy knowledge that our people taught the Greeks was a puzzle to them. But they termed our educational system the mystery system. But of course, it was not a mystery to us. It was simply the way that we educated young men and women in that system. And let's take a look at the ancient Kemetic mystery system. And I use that word Kemet or Kemetic because that was the original term for Egypt. Actually, the Greeks gave it this name, Egypt or Egyptos. But our people called that area of Africa that was in the northeastern corner of Africa, our people called this area Kemet, which meant black, or the black land. And that's because every year the Nile River, which flooded that particular area of Africa, and it winds down through Central Africa, starting in places like Ethiopia and Uganda. It started in the north. The Nile River began or originated in the north, and then it flowed upward. So we called our country Kemet, which meant the black land. So in reference to the mystery system, the ancient Egyptian mystery system or educational system, let's take a look at what types of curriculum or what types of subjects were taught in this system. Now, I won't list all of the subjects taught. However, I will list the most basic and fundamental topics. The first thing that students had to know in the curriculum was the curriculum of the 7 liberal arts. And this is where our liberal arts come from. When you go to college, you have to take a science track or a liberal arts track. But at that particular time, the 7 liberal arts consisted of, first, grammar. You had to know how to write. And secondly, arithmetic. You had to know how to compute. Then, of course, the young children were taught rhetoric. And they didn't just choose any child. They chose the children that they thought would be able to survive and go on to finish that particular system or educational system or mystery system, as again is what the Greeks called it. But then they had to be taught the mathematics of space. They had to be taught geometry. Next, they were taught music and its healing properties. Music is intimately related to mathematics. Also, astronomy. More and more today, we're calling the study of astronomy physics. Okay? Astronomy, and last, mortuary science. How to funeralize the deceased. And it was an entire science at that time, because the people that deal with the deceased today are still studying the techniques of the ancient African people. They're still studying how in the world did they embalm people so that their bodies would last for thousands of years, such that when they would unwrap those mummies, you could still see their skin and their hair. And one of the secret elements, so I won't say secret, but one of the elements that they use to preserve the dead was natron. Okay, so you have the seven liberal arts, which were the foundation of the educational system. Now again, we're connecting these things with what helps the pineal gland function, what keeps it on track. Okay? Now, again, another part of the knowledge from the ancient Kemetic educational system, the knowledge that kept the pineal gland functioning, was a life of virtue, having a virtuous life. And let's take a look at some of the virtues that the student was taught. You had to live a life of virtue. What do we mean by that? There were 10 virtues. And I'll list the most important. First, the student was taught to control his thoughts, his or her thoughts. First, control of thought. Secondly, from your thoughts come actions. So we say control of actions. Okay? The next thing that was a virtue was when you were being persecuted, or as the young people say, if you're dissed today, you had to have freedom from resentment. You couldn't hold a grudge. So the next thing was freedom from resentment when under persecution. And I'll abbreviate this because I'm running out of space. The next virtue you had to develop was courage. And of course, courage means doing things even though you're afraid, but doing the right thing even when you have that fear. The next virtue was persistence in your goal. When things didn't go your way and you had a goal, you had a mission, then if you were persistent, you would be a stronger person and you would actually achieve that goal. So persistence was very, very important. And last but not least, and I know I'm missing some, but again, I'm trying to write the most important. You had to have confidence in yourself, faith. And even the Bible says if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can achieve your goal. So these are just some of the 10 virtues that developed the third eye or the inner eye. And next, let's take a look at the principles that an individual had to live by. You had to also live a principle-filled life. And all of this, again, is a part of knowledge that helped that inner eye to develop. Okay? And we're still on the curriculum of the Egyptian educational system. A principled life. And when we look at the principles that our youth had to follow, had to live by, first, They had to live by truth. They had to be honest. That was the most fundamental principle that you could live by, truth. Next, you had to be fair. And of course, we call that justice. The other principle that you had to strive for was order. Okay? Next is balance. And then accuracy. You had to be correct. So these are the principles that represented the concept and the goddess Ma'at. And that's the sister with the feather of truth. See if I can draw her real quickly here. That has the ankh on her lap and the feather of truth on her head. This is the goddess Ma'at. Ma'at meant law and order. This is where we get the term mathematics from. The Greeks said mathematics is that which is learned. But because the Caucasian race has a calcified pineal gland, and when I say calcified, I mean a pineal gland that is filled with limestone deposits, calcium deposits, hardened deposits. Because they have a calcified pineal gland, they were not complete in their explanation. They said that mathematics is that which is learned. They were half correct. What they meant was, it was that which they learned from their professors, from the priest, or from the Cariheb. But when we take it back to its root, mathematics comes from the word ma'at, which meant truth. When you solve an equation, if it's correct, it's going to be truthful. And of course, it deals with justice and order, balance. An algebra equation has got to be balanced, and of course it has to be accurate. So all of these words emanate from the goddess Ma'at. Okay. Now, let's go into the next topic, and that is, and I'll get back to some details about the pineal eye. But let's get into the next topic because I want to cover as much of this as possible, and that is melatonin. Now, the pineal, I mentioned that the pineal eye secretes this hormone, melatonin, at night. And it secretes serotonin during the daylight hours. And again, the things that help to enable the pineal gland to do its job is light. This is the major force that impinges on this inner eye, light. The pineal eye is really controlled by the light of the sun. Also, temperature. Next is the food that we eat. For those that work on a midnight shift where they don't get very much sunlight, it's critically important that they eat green, raw vegetables. Because in the green, raw vegetables, you have chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is melanin in the plant kingdom. Our melanin is black and brown, but the melanin of the plant kingdom is called chlorophyll. They do basically the same thing. Okay? So now, we're talking about serotonin. This is the daylight hormone. And I'll abbreviate hormone. Okay? Now, what does this do and why is it important? Serotonin begins to be secreted in the system as soon as the eyes, as soon as that inner eye senses that there's sunlight or there's the dawn. So with the morning sun, we get the secretion of serotonin in the bloodstream. Now, serotonin or serotonin gives us energy, gives us an abundance of energy. It helps us to repress or forget things that are very painful so that we can go on and work. Now, if we didn't get serotonin during the day, we would be awash in things that make us angry, things that make us upset. So I guess the Creator knew what to put in our bloodstream during the day. So the serotonin gives us energy, and it helps us to repress things that are painful. It geeks us up so that we can go on to live. Okay? Now, let's look at the hormone melatonin, which is most important. This hormone is being researched today, 24 hours a day, in colleges and universities and institutes. But if we look at this hormone called melatonin and some information about this hormone, we know that melatonin is produced in abundance in people of color, of African descent. Now this is the nighttime hormone. This is produced at night. Okay. It is produced in abundance in people of color because our pineal eye is not calcified. Our pineal eye is fluid and is functioning. The pineal eye of Caucasians half functions because it's calcified. They do not get very much melatonin. This is why their scientists are doing so much research on it today, because they're trying to find out how can we get this hormone that black people produce in abundance. Now, some of us don't get a lot of it if we don't get to sleep during the nighttime hours. You know, if you stay up after 12 o'clock at night, you don't get a whole lot of melatonin, but you still get more melatonin than the melatonin of Caucasians whose pineal eye is calcified. So it's secreted directly by that inner eye that is not calcified and that functions adequately. The pineal eye of people of color functions adequately. And this comes from information from, let's say, The African Origin of Biological Science. This is a book by Richard King. Okay. It's also discussed in the pineal gland and melatonin. This is a little pamphlet that I put out in 1991. In 1988, I began to do research on, and it should be melatonin. I began to do research on melatonin, and much of the information that I found, much of the information that I found was in medical journals, very technical medical journals. So I found that I had to take all of these 15-letter words that were in medical terms and put it in lay people's terms so that everyday people could understand. And this is where I found out, when I started looking at the science journals, this is where I found out that people of color produced melatonin in abundance, and whites didn't. So they had to get their melatonin through artificial means. They have to get their melatonin through a pill like this, okay? But this is produced in our system at night in abundance. Now, let's take a look at what the melatonin does.
Excuse me, how do they produce that in a pill? I don't understand.
How do they produce it?
Yeah, how do they produce it commercially? Where do they get the melatonin?
That's a good question. It is natural tissue. Melatonin is tissue that comes from the inner eye. Some
How are they taking it from?
They're taking it from black people. They're actually killing black people and taking the gland, the hypothalamus and the gland and grinding it up, just killing black people and just put it in pill form and taking it and ingesting it in themselves.
Yeah, some people theorize that, exactly.
Well, where else would they get it from?
Well, I guess they can make it because they know the components. They know that melatonin is made up of, and I really didn't, that's the next subject when I get to melanin. But they know the components of melatonin, so if they know the components, they can reproduce it synthetically. But that's not to say I'm sure that they're getting some of that from black people, from cadavers, dead folks. Okay? What's your question, brother?
I was going to say that I heard the brother Bobby say it. He said that they tried to produce it artificially in laboratories, but the melatonin they have doesn't have memory. So
okay.
Work with that, so
Okay.
they actually killing black people to get it.
Okay, now that leads me into this topic. What does the melatonin do? What is the function of melatonin? The brother mentioned the first function, that is, it boosts our memory. It helps us to remember things. It is actually responsible for dream sleep, and they call it rapid eye movement sleep. So we say responsible for dream sleep. And a lot of times, this is where we get the solutions to some of our problems in the dreams. Okay, we all know that. Then it organizes our system. This is a powerful organizer. It organizes our biological, mental, and spiritual system. It's very powerful in terms of organizing. And it also slows So, as I stated before, they're getting this in artificial terms, all right? So, once we get to bed at the proper time, and that is before 12 midnight, for some reason or another, the Creator says 12 midnight is the cutoff point. If you get to bed before 12 midnight, you produce more melatonin. If you get to bed after 12 midnight, that drastically decreases the amount of melatonin in the bloodstream. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
How much does the fact that it just gets started at midnight, how much does midnight basketball got to do with that?
Okay.
Saying basketball at midnight is important for young black males.
Well, first of all, they want to get the young brothers off the street. And they know basketball, they love basketball. But midnight basketball, I mean, actually what you're doing is you're messing up that balance.
Not all of that.
You're shutting down your melatonin. And when I finish this, I'm going to write a graph so you can see how much, approximately how much is produced at each time period. Okay. Okay, so now it slows down aging. It strengthens your immune system, which means that it's very important for the cure of AIDS. So if you have AIDS, it's real important for you to get the proper rest, because that's where you get that strengthening melatonin. So we say it strengthens the immune system. Okay? It puts us in a pleasant mood. Some of my students that I would give this information to in class, they would have the saying, melatonin makes you mellow. Okay? So we say that it puts you in a good mood. And the next thing it does is it resets the biological clock. Now sometimes when we travel from one city to another, from one continent to another, going back and forth to Africa, that biological clock shifts. And it's hard for us to adjust. So what melatonin does is it puts that biological clock back into the correct phase. It helps us to adjust to our new environment. And this is real important for those that travel. So it helps us to reset or adjust the biological clock. Now I want to write this graph so you can see graphically what happens to melatonin at a particular hour, at each hour. Okay. Let's see if I can find, here we go. Okay. Now we'll call this graph melatonin's path. And I'll save myself some writing. The path of melatonin. Let's say we have a graph. On this line, we have the amount of melatonin that's being produced in milligrams. Okay? mg. stands for milligrams, okay? Then over here, we have the time that the melatonin is being produced. So let's say at 9 o'clock, here we've got, and this is PM, okay? 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock, midnight, and 1 o'clock a.m., 2 o'clock. Let me write this better. 3 o'clock, 4, and dawn, 5 o'clock. Okay? This is the PM, and over here is the AM. Okay? Now, let's take a look at approximately the values or how much is produced. Over here, let's put some numbers. Let's say this is 0. Start our graph at 0. Okay? Then we'll go 5, 10, 15, by increments of 5, and 20. Okay? Now, we say approximately this much is produced at 9 o'clock p.m. At 10, we get about this amount in milligrams of melatonin being put out in the bloodstream. Okay? At 11 o'clock, say we get about this amount. Now at 12 o'clock, the scientists tell us that there's a big increase, in melatonin that's being put out in the bloodstream. Now after midnight, going towards dawn, then the melatonin begins to decrease. And this is why I say it has an inverse relationship with serotonin. Let's say 5 o'clock, we're down here. About down here. So at 9 at night, especially in the summer, we're saying this is summer. At 9 at night, this is when it starts getting dark. We see the melatonin increasing in the bloodstream. Then as darkness comes, we get more melatonin. At 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, then at 12 o'clock, there's a big increase. Perhaps this is why they say that we should be in bed by 12 midnight, because you get most of your melatonin at that time. And then after 12 midnight, then it starts going down. Now, when you're in bed sleep, it's very important that you don't have any light in your environment, because once there's darkness, as soon as your eyes perceive light, that melatonin starts to decrease. So for those brothers and sisters that sleep with the TV on, they're wreaking havoc on their system. Okay? Or for their children to sleep with the TV on, and I've seen people sleep with the TV on all night long, they're wreaking havoc on their system. Someone over here had a question. Yes?
So not just sunlight, but any light, like from a light bulb?
Light, yes, from a street light, a light bulb. Once you're in bed sleep, once it's night, and you're in bed sleep, as soon as that pineal eye senses light, then that melatonin shuts down.
You just sleep with a thing over your eyes? Like
Some people do, yeah. Some people sleep with those, what do you call it, blinders, whatever it is, over their eyes.
So the light that hits the pineal gland is coming from the eyes. That's how it reaches it, through the eyes.
Yeah, it reaches it through the eyes. And I had another diagram, I think.
How about moonlight?
That's light. As soon as that eye produces, as soon as the eye perceives any kind of light at night, then that's a signal to shut down.
So we should be sleeping in a totally dark room.
Yes, yes,
Pitch black room.
yes, ma'am. That is correct. See, this is, and as much as we all love the sister Phyllis Hyman, this is one of the problems that she had. She had a problem with manic depression. I came to find out that when I had done some reading on her, some research and some interviews that people had done, she started her career in 1977. She made a decision to get into that lifestyle where she stayed up all night and she would sleep during the day. She even talked about that in some of her songs. And she kept that lifestyle for 17 to 18 years. And scientists have found now that once you start having a decrease in melatonin, you suffer from depression. If you produce too little melatonin at night or too much melatonin during the wrong period of time during daylight hours, you're going to start suffering from depression and mental problems. You're going to have problems with your judgment. This is why, like I said, with brothers and sisters that work that midnight shift, they have to be very careful to get those green raw vegetables, because those green raw vegetables feed the inner eye. They give it that chlorophyll. That's the plant melanin. See? Okay, so we're talking about the relationship of serotonin and melatonin, and in a word, let's take a look at this again in a kind of a simplified form, because I know that's a lot of writing with the numbers and things. If we just look at the path, again, this is the path of melatonin and serotonin. Melatonin and serotonin. It resembles a sine curve. We have up and down, up and down. Here is serotonin during the daylight hours. Here's melatonin. No, wait a minute. Here's melatonin at night. Okay? Then melatonin is low during the daylight hours. Okay? Now, if you're going to sleep during the daylight hours, you're producing melatonin at the wrong period of time. So there's the imbalance. See? So here we've got serotonin high, melatonin low. So melatonin is high here at night, and then serotonin is low. Okay? That's how it looks. And in mathematics, we call this the sine graph. For those of you that may have had trigonometry, sine, cosine, tangent, this is the sine curve.
If you have light when you during the day when you're sleeping, you won't produce as much melatonin.
If you're sleeping during the day and you're sleeping still with light, you don't produce a lot of melatonin, no. But you know, it's like when you shut your eyes, you're still, it's almost like your eyes is perceiving that it's dark, but you're right, you still don't produce a lot of melatonin. For those that nap, I'm assuming you're talking like napping during the day or something like that.
What if you slept in a pitch black room in the daytime?
It's still in that imbalance. You're producing the melatonin at the time of day where it shouldn't be produced, so you got that imbalance. You know, so you wake up, you feel depressed. You know you got too much melatonin during the daylight hours when the Creator meant for that hormone to be produced at night, because it's black. It makes the melanin. Okay, now I think I should go into the melanin. Does somebody else have a question? Okay. All right, now we can go into the last part of this, or going towards the last part, and that is the melanin. So, the pineal eye does its work through its hormones of serotonin and melatonin. Melatonin puts melanin in the bloodstream at night. Melatonin is what synthesizes and makes the melanin. Melatonin brings together all the ingredients that are needed to make that melanin, and it puts it out at night. That blackness is produced in blackness. Okay? So now I can write this little graph here. This little diagram. We're here. Let's take a look at melanin synthesis. First we have the sun. Okay? And I can't draw very well, so please pardon me. Okay. Then you have the human eye, or the human beings. Let's see, this is his nose, this is lips, you know. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Now, here we have the pineal eye, which is actually shaped like a triangle. Okay, in the center of the brain. So the sunlight, the rays of the sunlight hits that pineal eye, and that eye perceives that, oh, now I'm getting this sunlight, so it's being stimulated. So as a result of that, then it stimulates the pineal eye, which is actually a tiny group of nerve cells, millions and millions and millions of tiny nerve cells. This is the inner eye, the pineal eye, is actually a tiny group of nerve cells, a bunch of nerve cells, see? This is why we're so feeling, because we got the nerve cells. Nerves are meant to help us feel. So you got the pineal eye, which are the nerve cells, and they go on to produce the melatonin, which is, like I said, that hormone. Okay? Now, this is the trip. This is the sweet trip. All right? That starts with the sunlight, stimulates the pineal eye, which are a tiny group of nerve cells, and those nerve cells go on to produce the melatonin at night, and the melatonin go on to produce melanin. Now let's take a look at melanin. What is it? What does it do? What is it made of? What is in the melanin that makes it so powerful? Okay? Melanin. Hope I've got this right. Okay? All right. I nickname melanin the protector. Okay. And did I give a name for melatonin? Okay. The pineal eye was the enabler. Melatonin is the stabilizer because it stabilizes you. It fortifies you. Okay? It makes you stable, mentally stable too. Okay, so the melanin is the protector. Now, what is it? Basically, melanin is a natural sunscreen. Okay? Black people have it, white people don't. There's nothing they can do about it except try to get it. That's it.
Now,
okay, this brother, I think, yes, sir.
well, if white people start, he had a question.
Yeah, I wanted
Go
to
ahead.
ask, well, wearing sunglasses, will it stop that process from the sun hitting your eyes and going to your pineal gland?
That's an interesting question. I think it does. Although they don't say that, the sunglasses are meant to protect us from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. But I don't know whether black people need sunglasses because our eyes are dark. Our eyes are brown, so that melanin is a natural filter. That's why they put it in sunglasses. They put melanin in sunglasses for Europeans to protect them because too much of the sunlight can destroy their eye tissue. So, like I said, if blacks want to wear those, that's up to them. But I think you do have a point. I think it does. Yes. This is. Okay, then they have to wear sunglasses because if for those of us that have that albinism, we have that vulnerability to our eye developing cataracts because of that sunlight. So if you don't have a lot of melanin in the eye, then you are vulnerable to the so-called quote-unquote damaging rays of the sun. Okay. Brother, yes, sir.
Well, you're saying that melatonin produces melanin, which produces color. Is that correct?
Melatonin brings all the ingredients together for the melanin and then produces it and then secretes it out in the bloodstream at night. Melanin is color. It's a chemical substance. It's pigment.
Okay, so there are other things involved in creating the color other than the melatonin. You said it brings all the things together. In other words, if white people start taking melatonin, will that affect their skin color?
Yeah, I think.
Their pigment?
I think. See, they're starting to put melanin on as like a lotion to make themselves dark. They call it NDP. They're spreading melanin on their skin. Because I have an article and I didn't bring it with me, but about 2 years ago there was an article in the Detroit Free Press. They have a NDP that they spread on like lotion to make their skin brown, to give themselves a natural tan. So, but for us, like I said, all the ingredients that we need to produce the melanin is in the melatonin. See, the melatonin brings together all the ingredients. Someone had a question.
Yes. The young man about the sunglasses. I read an article about 15 years ago when black men were really into sunglasses. And they said that if they wear them over a long period of time, their eyes become so sensitive to the light when they took them off.
Isn't that
until they
something?
could not wear them anymore.
Wow. So in other words, they would be addicted. It would change the nature of their eyes.
Yes.
God, see that's.
Unless, you know, for a few minutes while you're out in the sun.
Yeah.
But to like nighttime, you know, guys used to whenever all the time. It
Cool, trying to be
make
cool.
it where you cannot be become so sensitive to the sun till you have to wear.
That's something. That's deep. Okay, so we've got the melanin, which is the natural sunscreen. It is a chemical substance. And basically it's pigment. It's the black and brown pigment that gives color to our skin, our eyes, and our hair. That's what melanin is. On a biological basis, it's a chemical substance, the black and brown pigment that gives color to our skin, our eyes, and our hair. Okay? Now, what is its function? What is the major function of melanin? Melanin functions, as I stated, and I'll be very succinct now, it protects human beings from the ultraviolet rays of the sun. I guess it's because since African people came from a warm environment, obviously that melanin was needed to protect us against constantly being bombarded by the rays of the sun. So the Creator put that melanin. That's why I say to us, it's a natural sunscreen. But Europeans, they don't have that sunscreen. They've got to take theirs and what is it, the sun protection factor of 15, which means they can only be out in the sun 15 to 30 minutes or something like that. And if they stay out longer, then they will actually burn up. And so there's a big problem with skin cancer among the Caucasian race. In the countries and the states that are further away from the equator, they have a big problem with skin cancer, okay, because they're away from the equator, okay. Okay, so it helps us, it protects us from the UV rays of the sun. It also protects us against skin cancer. Okay, skin cancer among the African race is rare. Face it, it's rare, okay, because of the melanin, all right? It also protects us against, and I'm going to have to start erasing some of this. Hate to erase. Let's go over here. It keeps African people, for the most part, from getting Parkinson's disease. Because melanin is now, that's why I say that, stated on a basic fundamental level, it's in the skin, the eyes, and the hair, but it's also in the brain. So that melanin in the brain protects us against tremors, those electrical tremors that people get, you know, when you see people with that Parkinson's disease, they can't control themselves. Sister back here.
Is the skin cancer called melanoma?
Yes, malignant melanoma. Yes, that's what it's called.
Why is it called melanoma?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why it's called malignant. That means something that isn't good, but melanoma, you know, I guess because they lack melanin. You know, that's just like a branch. They're branching off from melanin, melanoma. Melanoma. You know. Melanoma. Melanoma. Yeah, okay. Okay, so it protects us against the Parkinson's disease. Okay, now what is it being used for commercially? And I mentioned earlier it's being used in sunglasses. It's also being, in general, it's a filter. It filters out the rays of the sun. So they're using it now in computer screens. You know, for some of us that use computers, that sit at computers all day, you're not supposed to sit at a computer for a long period of time. So now they're making computer screens that are black with melanin in them to protect us from those, what do you call it, free radicals. Melanin protects us from radiation, okay, from those free radicals that come from the computer. So they're making computer screens made out of melanin, okay? Then they're making contact lenses out of melanin. All right? They're making plastic glass lenses out of melanin. And what it does, like I said, it filters out the color that does damage to the eye and to the human tissue. because without that melanin, you get that damage to the eye tissue. Question?
Wearing glasses, though, does that affect with the sunlight getting in the eyes?
I believe it does, because a lot of times I'll take my glasses off. Like when I was here, when the sun was out here, I took my glasses off and I got out there in the sun to get some nourishment.
Does the sun have to hit your eye directly, or just being outside with the sun?
When you have your glasses on, that sun isn't really getting to your eyes, so you don't get that much nourishment. So I would think that if you wear glasses, go at least 30 minutes out there in the sun to get that nourishment from the sun. See, and the sunlight also helps our body to produce the glucose, which is needed for the functioning of the brain, and norepinephrine, which is a neurotransmitter. The sunlight, we need the sunlight. See, we have to be careful about what Europeans say when they talk about the sun. They're really talking to themselves. They're not talking to us. When they say stay out of the sun, they're not talking about black people. They're not saying that to black people. They're talking about themselves. See, they get real sensitive when black people say, well, does that mean that we have an advantage? They get sensitive. See, then they start getting a little hostile. See, I've seen this happen. So, we have that advantage, but still, like I say, with the glasses, I think this is on a personal level. I can't prove it, but I think that we should spend some time letting the rays of the sun hit our natural eyes without the glasses. Okay, so we've got the commercial uses of melanin. Okay, the protector, it's an enabler. It protects us against something that's harmful in terms of ultraviolet rays. Now, this is not to say that the sun is our enemy. The sun is not our enemy, because they're putting out the mindset that the sun is the enemy to them, but not to us. Yes, sir.
You mentioned
I have to erase this.
putting melanin in the screens on the computers to protect from that low form of radiation.
Yes.
I read an article, and I'd like to have it here. They found that melatonin and melanin also protection from the serious, like nuclear power plants.
Oh, really?
They're finding in Chernobyl, in Russia, areas that have been totally evacuated. Some animals and some insects that are high in melanin and melatonin have not been affected by the radiation at all.
Wow, that is powerful.
I got an article here including one black beetle that hasn't been seen, that was not seen there for years. It has come back strong. It has a very high melatonin content, and it is not affected by the radiation at all. No mutations, no nothing.
Wow. See, that's powerful information. That beetle was a symbol in the language of Medu Neter. The beetle was called Kepera. I use this symbol a lot when I teach mathematics to students back home in Detroit. This is the symbol for transformation. And it was a frequent symbol in the language of what the Greeks call hieroglyphics, but what our people call the gods' words, the words of the gods, Kepera. In mathematics, this is equivalent to the equal sign. And when you have, just say a basic algebra equation, you might have something like 3x plus 4 is equal to 15. That equal sign is that Kepera. In fact, I teach this back home. Pardon me? That's powerful. Okay. So now, now let's get into the ancient Egyptians and, thank you. Okay. The ancient Egyptians and this black is hard to erase. And their language. Of course, they knew about the melanin. They call melanin Kim. Kim meant black. you were successful in the ancient Egyptian civilization, you were considered black. If you finished what you started, you were considered Kim. So in their language, or should I say in our language, black meant something good.
Yeah.
Of course, now here in this part of the world, and probably worldwide, anything bad is black.
That's right.
The black mood, the black Monday.
To change it around.
Yes. Yes, to get us off track. So we see the word for black was Kim. The word for dark or darkness, like in night, was Kiku. Now, you notice you don't see any vowels. And this is because when we wrote Medu Neter, when we wrote our language, I put this E in here, it should be KHM. We insert any of the 7 vowels so that we can pronounce it, because we got to know how to pronounce this. But for the most part, in between the first and last letters, they didn't use vowels. Okay? So we see Kim, we see Kiku, we see the word, and I stated before, Egypt was Kemet. Now let's take a look at how this looked. Kemet, the black land. First we have this symbol, which was a symbol for location, a place, a location. Okay? Then we see the letter T. It's like a loaf. Then we see the owl, which even today is a symbol for wisdom and intelligence. But the owl was the letter M. And we see this is letter M. This symbol here, I don't quite know what it is, but it gives you the KH or the Ka sound. So this spells Kemet, the black land, the Ka. Now, the Greeks called our people Egyptians. Our people called themselves Kemetiu. And they would spell that, let me give myself some room. Let's take a look at it over here. They called themselves the Kemetiu. K-M-T-Y-W. This was their term for Egyptians. Okay? Let's see if I can draw this. This is going to be a little difficult, but I think it'll be worth it. Excuse me, please. Just give me 1 minute, and I'll see if I can draw this. Kemetiu, we see this symbol, which is a symbol for black. And this symbol is a charred piece of wood, a burnt piece of wood. Okay? Then we see this symbol here. Some of this I'm still learning myself, so. Then the letter T again, which is the loaf. This symbol for W. And we see the eagle, which was the letter A. Okay. Then we see the symbol of a man, and I'll draw this as best I can. A man kneeling. And we see his sister. Okay, so this was the terminology for Kemetiu. Make sure that I don't get this wrapped around myself. So this is what our people call themselves. And they also would often refer to themselves as being children of the sun. That's in the language of Medu Neter. This comes from a book called Egyptian Grammar by Alan Gardner, these terms. All right, now I want to get into any other questions. If I'm going too fast, please say something, because I know I'm covering a lot of... Okay.
Sorry, sister first.
I'm sorry, brother.
Sister first.
Go ahead, sister. He's yielding to you.
We seem to trace our ancestry back to Egyptians.
Africans from Egypt.
We don't seem to go much further back, as though we are stuck in time?
That's a good question. Some of us do go further back to the Nubians, the Ethiopians, and even the Twa people. Those are the little people that the ancient Egyptians said they came from, the Twa people. It's not a lot of information about Nubia and that area where the Twa people live, but there is some. First of all, I know myself, the brothers and sisters that are into the study of ancient Africa, they focus a lot on Egypt because before we didn't have this information. We weren't allowed to have this information. See, so now this information is being published by African people, so now we understand it more. It's a different twist on it. It's a deeper understanding of the civilization of Kemet or Egypt, and this was Africa's most advanced civilization. And I say it's advanced because as early as 3200 BC, our people were publishing books on mathematics and astronomy. And one of the books, two of the oldest math books that I know of, one was called the Amos Math Papyrus. Now, papyrus is a Greek term for paper because our people actually invented paper. And so their term for paper, the Greek term was papyrus, but we call paper papu, P-A-P-U, or P-P. The original term is pop. But, sometimes you might see P-A-P-U to make it pronounceable. But this is one of the oldest known math books. And that's why I took the time to show that this melatonin graph actually came from trigonometry. Our people were doing trigonometry as early as, I'd say, 1850 BC. That's roughly 4,000 years ago. So, we're studying this information, and we're still finding out more and more about the advanced civilization of Kemet. But because they were so advanced, we like to go back and say that this is where we were at our best state. We're not there now, but if we can do that back then, what can we do now? Because it's still in our DNA, still in our genes. The brother had a question.
I was saying that doesn't children of the sun come from a mason, like a mason? That's what they get it from.
Well, see, brother, the Masons got that knowledge from our people.
That's right.
The Masons got their signs and symbols. This symbol right here that they use, this symbol, and I'm not trying to diss anybody here that's a Mason. That square, this is a meta-nature term. This term means one of the terms for square root. Okay? They took that term from meta-nature. You know how you see the Mason symbol with the geometry, that protractor, and this right here? That's from the language of meta-nature. They got that from us.
I was I was wondering, about the civilization before that called Atlantis or Lemuria. Ancient Atlantis and Lemuria. Which Atlantis?
You talking about Tom Mary?
No, Lemuria. Moorish or Lemuria.
Numeria,
which was before Atlantis. This 15,000 BC, and then Lemuria was before Atlantis, which I think something like between 3 and 5 million years ago that Lemuria dissipated, and then
okay.
saying that that was actually the Atlantis and Lemuria. I think Newsweek wrote an article in 1994 about Atlantis and Lemuria, and that was these were the two of the most advanced civilizations that the planet has ever seen, that they have not documented.
I understand. I like to see their documentation because Caucasians will do anything to keep us from accepting the fact that people of color invented mathematics, astronomy. They use high level, and I mean high level physics to construct. And I haven't even gotten into the slides. I guess it's time for us to get into the slides. I know I've kept you here for a long time, but if...
Sister, don't worry about it.
I wasn't saying that they were black. I'm saying actually they admit now that these civilizations were black.
The Atlantic
Yeah.
warriors, they did exist, and they were black people.
They were black people. It seems like all the things that I've read about Atlantis, there are always these people from another planet. So you're saying now they're starting to admit that they were black?
They were black people, and by information that I got from several black people
Egyptians told the Greeks that were found
come from another planet, so they can hide
in South American rulers.
Okay, talked about it. Okay, that makes sense because I know.
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah. Okay, but I just want to address this one, then ask a sister question. I know there are a lot of books that our people wrote that still haven't been found. See, there's some people, some of our leaders say that much of the information on our civilization was lost. I disagree. I think much of that information is in these museums in Germany, in Britain, in Russia, and America, and much of it is under the ground, still waiting to be excavated. Yes,
what I
ma'am.
was going to say to the young man, he's talking about his point is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I'm just now getting where I'm learning a whole lot of stuff about where we came from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure what he's saying is right.
Okay.
But old people like us takes a little time to get used to being thought of as an Egyptian, you know?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, see, but you let me finish with Egyptian.
See, really. I could have said that was beautiful. Actually Africans, because some people think that Egypt was not in Africa, but we're talking about Africans. Yeah. Well, you're being honest. I respect that. Okay, so now I just want to get into, before I get into just a couple of the slides, the chemical makeup of melanin, because some people want to know what's in the melanin, what's in it that gives it its power. Now, scientists don't know the structure of melanin. They don't know the form that the melanin molecule takes. And I personally think that's good, because maybe once they find out the structure, they could destroy it. Anything could happen. But I know that melanin is made up of 4 ingredients. The first is carbon. This is what gives it its blackness. Okay? The next ingredient is hydrogen, which is water. And of course, we know that water is a cleanser. Okay? So the next ingredient is oxygen. Oxygen is also a cleanser, so that's necessary for life. So basically, you have the first 3 elements are the basic fundamental elements that are in all living things. And then the 4th ingredient is nitrogen. And this is where we get the natural tranquilizing properties, and I don't think I wrote that up there about the melatonin. It's a natural tranquilizer. It relaxes us. It chills us out. And so this is why, for black people, we're laid back people. We chill out because we've got that melanin, that nitrogen, oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon. Of course, we catch holy hell for it, but still, it's not something that we should want to get rid of real soon. Okay? Okay.
So the lines in between the rainbow separates down to its finest point. They are black. And that's stardust.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, I've heard that before. Yeah. And I really didn't want. Well, I shouldn't say didn't want. I didn't really get a chance to get into the mathematics behind the melanin, because when the sister mentioned stardust and the rainbows, the melanin, of course, is in the black holes in space.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
That's when I found out that they called that stardust.
Okay.
Because they said it was the makeup of the black hole.
Oh, yes, yes. And yeah, and
Say it now, because my husband thinks I'm strange when I start telling him that.
yeah, you know, people do look at you, you know, but well, I mean, you know, it's, if you have the information, you have it, and, you know, maybe they don't know it. But we're talking about the black hole, which is made of melanin. And I know for a fact, now, we talked about briefly that Amos' mathematical papyrus, our people had a mathematical equation that relates to the black hole. And there are Caucasian math professors at Wayne State University, one of which I know, that is studying ancient Egyptian mathematics and black holes. There's a mathematical formula, and it relates to fractions. And this is something that for some reason or another, many of our people have a lot of problems with. But these fractions are intimately black. This is in one of the oldest known math books is being researched today that relates to the black holes and how the universe began. Melanin, blackness, mathematics, ancient Africa, they're all tied in.
Whenever they talk about the dark substance they find in space, and they say this is what holds together the universe, they won't say melanin. Substance.
Okay.
They're talking about melanin.
Okay, I heard that.
Those four elements.
Okay, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Okay. Okay, I heard that, yes.
I have a question. I don't know if it's right or not. Isn't the melanin the makeup of even those elements? Isn't it the sub particles of the carbon, the nitrogen? I'm saying the melanin even makes up those.
It could be. I'm not heavy into chemistry, but it could very well be. It could very well be. And that, like I said, maybe that has something to do with the structure. Like I said, they can't find out the structure of melanin. They don't know how many molecules of hydrogen, how many molecules of carbon. They're now in their research libraries trying to find this out now. In their colleges and universities, now they're trying to find out the chemical structure of melanin. Yes.
Do we know how the chemists were able to extract that chemical melanin from the pineal gland? I mean, you would think that they have to have fairly sophisticated instruments to be able to extract hormones and identify them.
I don't know whether they did that. I know that they were into alchemy, changing a chemical form from one form to the next. I don't know that much about that. I don't know.
Well, see, that speaks to the Dogons. You know, when white folk got the technology and C3, you know, if you trace back, we didn't have telescopes.
Right.
We had the knowledge.
Yes.
So it's really a secret about what it is that got us that knowledge that we'll pass on even now.
Yeah.
Nobody understands how we have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the griots, the priests, even in Africa that are hidden way back in those villages, they probably still have that in their head. I'm quite sure. Okay, I want to get into the slides now. I just have a couple of slides that relate to this, and we'll end off on this point, dealing with some of these slides in ancient chemistry.
Can I tell you something?
Sure.
I was watching something on public TV in the middle of the day about a year ago, and they was talking about fusion. And fusion is how to get electricity and energy without having to pay for it and all this kind of stuff. Well, these scientists that was working in the University of Utah had a couple that was working in Germany along with them trying to find fusion. And they was agreeing on this one way to do a project. And whenever they shot all that energy in there or something like that, everything just shot to heck and left this black dust in there. And then they said, well, let's check out to see what this black dust is made up of, you know. So they checked it out, and the ones in America couldn't find anything. The one in Germany couldn't find anything. So they just like shoved it to the background.
Okay.
One day, the one in Germany said, let me look at this again before I throw it out. So he started breaking it down to the lowest denominator that he possibly could get it down to. and it came down to what it was really at the very base was a crystal, a black crystal, and he said, and it's stardust. And I don't even have stardust from the middle of the rainbow and all of that. But I didn't know anything about those makeups that you were talking about until you started talking about it. And I thought, oh, that's the same thing they said that this
that black dust was made of. I hear you.
Yeah. So if you started thinking about what's going, well, I don't want to think about it right now.
Well, I think it just shows that, like they say, that the universe is based on blackness.
Now, let me tell you where you can see what it looked like.
Yeah.
Under the microscope, but you can see it full blown. Back in the 60s, the World Fair was in Canada.
Yeah, I remember.
And you know that.
That big. What do you call it?
Yeah. Whatever that is what that looks like. What those crystals look like.
Oh, okay.
Magnified 1 billion times.
Okay.
And what's important about that is that's a freestanding structure. That one hold, that one hold, that one hold, that one hold, that one.
Wasn't it based on the geometry angles, geometric angles, and you saying that blackness is made up of that same geometric angles?
Down to the very base. And it holds itself together by its soul.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
An egg.
Yeah.
It just does what it does, and nobody don't understand why.
Yeah.
And that's the geometric, the mathematical, or whatever makeup the basic whatever. What look like melanin.
Okay. That's deep. That's very deep. We ready?
Yeah, turn on.
Okay. Someone had another question? Okay. Let's see. Can we get the lights? Are we going to keep the lights on? Oh, there we go. Okay, am I in somebody's way? I know I'm in. Maybe I better sit down. Oh, no, that's good. Okay, this first slide is a slide of a page from one of the oldest religious texts. This is a page from the Book of the Coming Forth by Day. Perhaps most of you know it as the Book of the Dead. That was the name that the Arabs gave our text because they found it in the pyramids, laying on the floor sometimes, or in the coffins. Now this Book of the Dead, or Book of the Coming Forth, is the basis of all of the religious texts today, including the Old and the New Testament, the Torah, and also the Quran. And this is the judgment scene. Now, we've heard, of course, we know about the 10 Commandments, but at this time, back in the millennia, our people had a story where when you died, if you wanted to see the face of God, you had to be able to recite over 140-something negative confessions. We say, "Thou shalt not steal." They would say, "I have not stolen." We say, "Thou shalt not kill." Our people would say, "I have not murdered. I have not gossiped." And as you see on the left side of the scale is the heart, the human heart of this brother that's kind of leaning down like that with this white gown, him and his wife. That brother is an Egyptian scribe. Those were the indispensable recorders of our civilization back in Kemet. They wrote down literally everything. So Ani was his name. He was a scribe, and you see him with the white gown because white at that time was a symbol of death. As the sister said, it was almost just the opposite. Black at that time, black was good, white was a symbol of death. So Ani's heart is being weighed on Ma'at's scale. The heart is on the left, and the feather of the sister Ma'at is on the right. You saw the face of Wasser, or what the Greeks call Osiris, when your heart measured against the very light feather of Ma'at. I couldn't tip that scale. I don't think it's going to get, if it gets larger, it gets unfocused. See what I'm saying?
It's because it's not in right.
It's not in right?
Yeah, it's not in the audio tech.
Okay, well, as long as you can make it better.
I don't want to disturb your presentation, so I won't.
Yeah, because I think that's the best we can do for now. Okay, now let me see. Forward. Okay, now these are some typical brothers from Kemet. Also, the brother in the end is from Nubia, and they're carrying a tree scrub to give to one of the high Egyptian pharaohs. You don't see him, but his name is Roch-Mari. He was an Egyptian librarian. Our people had libraries where they had books, just like all of the books that you see here. Our people had repositories of literatures and documents. They had libraries. They were called Per-Madat. Per meaning house, Madat meaning book. And this is the remains of a college. This is the College of Hathor. Hathor was the sister that was known for being the goddess of love. The colleges and universities at that time were used for research and development by the ancient Egyptian priests, scholars, and they were where our people went to learn the 7 liberal arts and to learn the curricula of the ancient Egyptian educational system that the Greeks called the mysteries. And this is a picture of the pyramid of Khufu. This is the largest of all the pyramids that are in a little triangle in a city called Giza, G-I-Z-A. This is the pyramid of Khufu that the Greeks call Cheops. At the top of that pyramid, our people symbolized an eye, which was the pineal eye. The pyramid was made on the basis of the human body. And they knew at that time that at the top of our head was the inner eye, or the pineal eye, which, as I stated on the blackboard, was also called the rigid eye, the sound eye, the eye of Horus, or the eye of Peru. These pyramids were made of blocks of stones that were as large as 2 to 25 tons each. Over 2.5 million blocks of stones were used. They used mathematical formulas of calculus, geometry, algebra, and trigonometry to structure these stones that are the only one of the 7 wonders of the world that are still standing today. Here we see a smaller pyramid of those triad of pyramids. This is the pyramid of the son of Khufu, whose name is Ka-Fra. And he was the son of the pharaoh Khufu, who lived, I believe, in the 4th dynasty. Now, I stated earlier that the pineal eye helps us to orientate and to determine our sense of directions. The Africans knew this thousands of years ago. This is the picture of the oldest map in the world. It is the map of a gold mine. In the center, that white portion is the portion where the men would rest and they would eat. And the other portions are the portions that show the directions to where they got the materials to make the pyramids, where they got the materials of granite, stone, basalt, and sandstone. Those pyramids at that earlier period of time were not made of brick. They were made of stone, which is one of the hardest substances that's used for buildings. This is called the map of Wadi Hammamat. Wadi means river in the ancient Kemetic language.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
Where did the notion, I know it's incorrect, but where did the notion that Jews helped to build the pyramids as slaves come from?
Okay, I believe that was Jewish mythology. There's documented evidence in a book called the Berlin Papyrus that our people got paid to work on those pyramids. Actually, they were temporary workers. They worked only during a particular season where the Nile flooded to make.
They couldn't farm.
They couldn't farm, and to make it easy to float those big pieces of stone on barges on the River Nile. And they called the Nile River at that time the Happy River. Called it Happy. I think this is the last slide.
At some place that the people that worked on the pyramids considered it a religious duty or part of a religious
Yeah, they
like how was it called? Like a hajj, I mean like a pilgrimage to Mecca or something.
Well, they believed that it was an honor to work on the pyramids because they believed they were working for the pharaoh who was a god. They believed the pharaoh was actually God, and so they considered it an honor to work on the pyramids. And a lot of times they would take the stones and the materials that were left over, they would take them home and build their own little small pyramid.
And this was done like when they weren't planting, like so off season.
Yeah, and you might make a note that during the times that they rested, they did drink beer. They chilled out drinking different types of beer on their rest periods. I think this is the last slide. Okay, let's turn this off. This
They called the Nile the Happy River.
Why?
Is that because it was a fun time for them building the pyramids?
I don't.
Nile was flooding.
It could be. It could very well be. I know that they loved working for the pharaohs, and even the scribes that were scribes of the pharaohs. Those were positions that were sought after positions. There were a lot of competition to be a royal scribe or a scribe of the pharaoh, because you sat there taking your notes while the pharaoh dictated the laws and etc. And it was, an honor at that time. So that may very well be. Okay, this ends the lecture, long presentation on the pineal gland, melatonin. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank all of you. You're a beautiful audience. I think this is Brother Henry. Yes, sir.
I've been working on second shift. I usually don't get to sleep till about 2:30. 7 years.
In the morning?
In the morning.
Yeah.
And also I wear contacts.
Okay.
I'm thinking I'm blocking, plus I'm not having the melatonin to sleep. So vegetables, green vegetables, would this help any? You think?
I heard, now I don't know how true it is, from Richard King, that he says that we tend to forget things after we have that surge of melatonin. It'll put us to sleep and puts you to sleep. But according to Richard King, he says it makes us forgetful and some people a little aggressive. If they take that melatonin, basically for the European. But I definitely say that you're supposed to get some sunlight every day that there's sun out there, in addition to the green vegetables, because that sunlight nourishes your body.
What hours are those preferable for the make the serotonin?
What do you mean in the morning when the serotonin is being made? It starts actually being put out when the environment grows light. As soon as light is being put out, the dawn, that's when serotonin.
Melatonin, what's peak for serotonin?
I think the peak for serotonin would have to be like 12 in the afternoon. Whereas at night, the peak for melatonin would be 12 midnight, since they're inverses of each other. So I would say 12 in the afternoon would be the peak for serotonin. And then it would start going down as you get to 1 in the afternoon, 2 o'clock, 3, 4 o'clock. Then towards 5 and 6 o'clock, then that melatonin starts growing in the bloodstream. Yes.
Is that any type of light, like fluorescent light, or just sunlight?
Well, the body produces it naturally as soon as it perceives light in the environment.
So any type of light?
It could, I don't know. It could be. It could very well be any kind of light. I'm not sure about that. That I don't know. I'm not sure. Okay. Oh, you had a question.
Well, I was going to ask your permission to do a commercial for, if you will, for cultural here.
Sure.
Because the first slide you showed with the Anubis and with the scale and the
judgment scene.
Yeah. It triggered something in my mind. It's basically, if you want to get the most in-depth and accurate representation of that slide and how important it is, they have a tape here by Naeem Akbar, The Science of the Mind. You have to listen to it. You have to. If you want to know what that's all about and the depth of the wisdom and knowledge and where we were coming from as a people, and get it from someone who knows what they're talking about, and not this foolishness that we're constantly being bombarded with out here from Europeans and so forth.
Would you tie the pyramids into
The Science of the Mind.
the pyramids in for us?
Well, the pyramids were considered to be a microcosm of the human body. And at the top of the pyramid, with Europeans, a lot of times they would take that 30 feet. The largest pyramid, the pyramid of Khufu, that was 481 feet, but they took the top 30 feet off. And that was the pyramidion with that eye. It actually had an eye on there. And I think at the British Museum they have one of those, what they call pyramidions. I can't remember what our people called it, but like I said, that was that symbolic eye at the top, since it was comparable to the human body. So it's comparable to that eye that we have in the center of our brain that's nourished by the sun, which our people call Ra.
We've noticed that a lot of the buildings downtown, the newest structures, have pyramid shape.
Yep.
And we figured European figures they come somewhere with that, and then put out books about pyramids, and they talk about how they actually can lose their headaches and whatever else is wrong with them by being in tents shaped like pyramids.
I think they're trying to pick up something, because I saw one of those buildings as I was coming here on a plane. I said, that pyramid at the time.
Pyramids, temples.
Yeah, so you know they obelisks.
What if it's a symbol for our brothers that are returned?
Do you think they mean it for that, or?
Yeah. What if it is? What if it's a symbol?
Well, the Europeans. That's why I wonder if they.
They may think they're not brothers, but they are.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, I think I was talking to a sister about that earlier. That, I've never told too many people about this, but is there a white race? To me, if all people come from us, aren't they black people who are wannabes? I mean, they're white. Richard King calls them white Africans, and I have that attitude too. I mean, they really aren't white.
I do agree, brother, but I got a problem with it because they are so cold-blooded and cold-hearted. They vicious things.
They know that. Yeah, I hear you. Yes. No.
Saying that the Europeans and Africans, actually white Africans, when you say they're the dialectical opposite, they're the dialectical opposite of the African psyche. And
yes.
Mentally, physically.
Yes.
And every spiritual, everything.
Yes.
That has to do with the black. This is a book that I read here.
But biologically, they come from us.
I'm saying that actually I read a book by A.E. Powell called Astral Body, and it talks about, it's this 33rd degree, or talking about them not having a soul, and they call it an astral corpse, or call it a shade, and it says it's an entity which is not a human at all.
Well, I would agree. I agree with that.
Aren't they the dialectical opposite?
They are, brother, but that dialectical opposite is caused by a calcified pineal gland. Yes, ma'am.
Would you say that the lack of melanin in Europeans has a lot to do with the aggressive behavior? Because I have yet to see black people that hunt for sport, that kill for sport, and there are certain other types of behavior. You don't really see like mass murderers.
Well,
black people.
But we're becoming more like that. But Europeans, because they come from a cold environment, that aggression helped them to survive in that cold environment. But that went through their DNA. Every generation, that aggression went through. That's why I mentioned the molecular biologists, the people that study that. They can tell you that aggression went through in their genes, so they're still like that today. See, the pineal eye was considered God. It was considered your connection to God. And the more knowledge you had, the more connection you had to God. So if that connection to God was calcified, what's the opposite of God? Satan.
One of the questions that always comes to my mind, maybe it's a lack of understanding about melanin.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm new to this.
Sure.
It's extraordinary for me, even though I got here late.
Okay.
Okay, there are different levels of melanin in us.
Yes.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that I'm better off if I'm darker than you?
Sister, it means that all of us are one, and if we're going to survive, we're going to survive as one. That's what that means. We can't let, it's like I mentioned to a sister earlier, that have you ever heard of Willie Lynch?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you know, now dig his last name, Willie Lynch. Okay? He said, divide the east side against the west side, the old against the young, the light against the dark. We can't let that divide. We can't let all of our different beautiful shades, even regardless, we still have melanin. See, we still, the superior one of us are those that have the superior behavior. For those that act better, we're the truly superior person. I don't care whether you can be jet black with a whole lot of melanin, very light with different degrees of melanin. It's the brother or sister that has the good behavior, because that's how our people judge you. You were judged based on your conduct. And that should still hold true for today.
Logical thing.
Yes.
More white blood. I don't want to get into who's right, but just in the case of melanin, if you have one white parent and one black parent, and they have a child, how does that affect the melanin?
How does it affect the melanin? That black gene is still dominant. I don't care how light that black person is, it's still some soul in there. Somebody, yes. Wait a minute, the sister back here.
I don't know, I'm just thinking about what you said. Have there been any studies done on this?
On what now?
Well, I'm saying, is that the case? Because a lighter skinned person, who knows? It may not even show on the outside of us. There may be a lighter person who has a better functioning pineal gland than a darker person. But have there been any studies to show that what the functioning is? Like, do you lose your?
A lot. See, I'm not understanding your question a whole lot, but what I can say.
I'll say this. I know what you just said.
Yeah.
It's attitude.
Yeah.
But I was just looking at it scientifically. I know, for example, even as a teacher, we work with children, that you work with children of different IQs, and I'm not sure I agree with that concept.
Yeah.
But you can very often have a child who supposedly has a lower IQ, who does better because of behavior, because of attitude, than a child who supposedly has a higher IQ.
So, okay, I need some clarity. Now, what are you saying? Are you saying?
What are you saying about the melanin? What does this really mean? I have some serious concerns about our children. What does this mean?
Sister, it means that blackest person, that blackest child in your class shouldn't be ignored because they have a lot of melanin. Okay? And the sisters and brothers shouldn't tease that light-skinned child and call them names because they're light-skinned. See what I'm saying? I see that a lot in terms of education. I see that black child being dogged and dissed a lot.
Yeah.
See, that's what bothers me. That's what I'm trying to work on.
Beyond that. That's still happening.
Well, it's still happening because, again, we've got to have that knowledge. It's that knowledge that will raise us up to that level of God.
I want to add something, and that is, we're looking at pigment when we talk about skin color.
Yes.
And melanin is not just in the pigment, it's in the brain.
Of course.
Kidney, it's in the eye.
Yes.
It's in the ear.
Yes.
It's distributed throughout the body. So you may not see it in terms of skin color,
yes,
but it's on the inside, and
yes,
I do have verifiable facts on
I'm sure, yeah.
Take an interracial child who has a black mother or a black father, and if you go inside the body, the melanin is all in the organs, regardless of what the child looks like on the outside.
Yeah, this is why, excuse me, because I said earlier that melanin is in the brain and it helps us to function. It is a protector. It's not just a pigment. It's something that protects us against getting those diseases. But maybe you're asking, what are the political implications? What are the social implications? How do we use this information?
How do we use it? Yeah, I'm thinking it's concerning the children.
Okay,
very often they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. We've all this melanin.
Okay, now see, we've got to use this information for three things. Number one, to solve problems. Number two, to enhance the quality of our life. And number three, to create something new. So if we've got this information about melanin, melatonin, and the pineal gland, when we come up with a problem, we got to say, well, what is it from this information can I use to help us to solve problems? See, I had, getting back to the situation with the children, I had this little boy in my class, I think his name was Danny. And I was asking all the students in class, what did they want to do? How did they feel? What type of people did they want to be when they got older? Danny, who was a very black-skinned child, told me that he wanted to commit suicide. Now, he was 10 years old. And what I did to solve that problem, I said, this is ridiculous. This doesn't make sense. This was tripping me out. So what I did was I took Danny, I said, Danny, you be the captain of this class. And everybody has to give their papers to Danny before they're passed in, before they get their grades. So I'm saying social problems, little problems like those, we have to use this information to help us solve problems with our people and with our children and everyday life. And again, the light-skinned, some of the very light-skinned sisters and brothers catch hell too.
Yeah, that's true.
See, we've got to stick up for them.
Yeah.
We've got to protect them. We've got to let them know that, hey, okay, you got that white blood, but those black genes are dominant. See, yes.
Let me show you how important they think melanin is. Mm-hmm. You know that the white scientists, especially in the 30s and 40s, said that a white woman that had sex with a black man who was spoiled for life.
Wow.
Because that gene would become part of her. Just no baby made. Just the sex. And if you pair a black person with a white person, and then for like 3 generations now, they keep pairing white, somewhere along the line, a little black one will pop up. So, it's something, it's like a gift. Yeah. See, I told you this stuff was stardust.
Hey, sister, I would like to say I really enjoyed it. I wanted to make this statement that said it don't matter what skin color is, because you got a Clarence Thomas who's darker than my shoe, and then you got a Farrakhan who's standing up for it, so it don't matter what color you are.
Who said that his grandfather,
spiritual quality of the soul.
White. By the way, Farrakhan said his, I think, grandfather was white, uncle, and look where that man is.
Once he got to melanin,
fighting for the rights of black people. So, we got the two extremes. But just one thing that I want to mention.
Not to say the dark, I'm just saying that, because you got real spiritual dark people call it Abdul Muhammad. So I'm saying that we all black, we need to all get together and let the Toms go head on.
Okay, one of the things that I wanted to mention in terms of solving problems in terms of melatonin, when I have something that's real challenging that I have to deal with, I get to bed between 9 and 10. I get my melatonin. The next day, I feel organized and I can meet that challenge better. So that's what I do with that information. Somebody back here had a question?
I just wondered, outside of the realm of what social effect it might have, I guess I wonder, are there black folks who are studying this, like you say, the white people are studying, they're in the laboratories, they're doing all of the breakdown of the genetic sort of thing about melanin. Are we doing it? Are there black people who are doing that too?
That's a good question. See, now, of course, you got Francis Cress Wells, who is a psychiatrist and geneticist. Then you got Richard King. Frances Wellesley was the pioneer. She's the one that brought out that melanin, the importance of that melanin back in the 60s. Then you have Richard King. He's been doing a lot of work with the study of the melatonin and it being other than a pigment, being in the inner ear to help us hear those tones, because you know how we love music. And then some other brothers and sisters. Carol Barnes. Jewel Cooper. Yeah. And then, in school, it's not a lot of us, but, one person can change the world. So if those of us that are going into molecular biology in college, we got got a son or daughter, or some of us are going into those fields, we've got to stay in those fields. No matter how hard it is, we've got to stay in those fields, because that person 9 times out of 10 may not be Uncle Tom that finishes college. They may turn around and do something to help our people. So we're trying to get more and more blacks into those fields, and there are blacks that are studying that.
And there's a conference too. They haven't had one in 2 years, but that was on the conference I went 2 years ago. They've had them before, and all these minds come together.
Yep, it's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yes, to piggyback her question, I'm curious to know who's funding the research at the different universities. Is that research being funded by that university? Is there a tie-in to the Defense Department?
Whoever funds all their research. I mean, this guy, like, I had some information on this guy that's doing, this European is doing information on photoprotective technology out of San Antonio, Texas. Application of synthetic melanin to optical plastic substrates. He's from the University of Texas. Usually these people from the universities, they write grants, and they get their money from foundations and the federal government, and also from private corporations. So they're funded from various sources.
And they're not going to tell you a lot, because they're, the tricks that they're pulling on us now, like they rush around here with these ambulances, and in addition to that, they've got all these vans around Atlanta. I know you don't know about this, but they got all these vans rushing around here to pick people up and take them in for dialysis. So I mean, there's some kind of treachery going on, and we don't understand that they need our blood and needs all these things that come from us. So that's going to tell you all the research they're doing and what the advantages to us.
Did you hear anything about the killing that's going on among our young people? And when they take them to the hospital to be pronounced dead or whatever, the hospital then will tell the funeral home that they will do the embalming. So what they do, they take those organs and they sell those organs, and then the funeral home man feels good because he gets still the same money, but he don't have to do the embalming. So
who's dealing with that here? Is anyone?
Well, there was something.
Dick Gregory was where we heard it at. He brought it up.
And there's another thing. There are a lot of black people in Atlanta here who are organ donors. Yes. A lot of, I see driver's licenses where I work, and they are organ donors.
But even if you don't donate them, they can take them anyway. And I suspect too, a lot of times when they're traffic accidents, it's probably best for you not to go to the hospital. Just go die on it. They're gonna take your organs. They don't need you to donate your organs once they got your blood.
It depends on your folks too.
And they don't know.
Knowledge. That's what I'm saying. The knowledge of your life.
The autopsy there, the way they leave you is the way it's supposed to be, and so they just let you go in the ground. But I didn't examine or know that you were missing all your organs.
Took your brain out.
Everything gone.
But I always wondered why they were pushing organ donors among black people. I said, it's just something doesn't seem right. They keep pushing us to donate our organs. I said, something's wrong with that.
They got more
I just felt uncomfortable.
that Central Park, remember that?
They have what?
Remember when they took the guy's kidney in Central Park? New York?
Yes.
Somebody's car.
Kidney.
That's why he didn't die. He only took one kidney.
Okay, can I make an announcement? Is someone blocking the driveway alongside the building?
Okay, now, what I want to do is, if you just give me 1 minute.
There's a gentleman that works in the back of the building trying to get out.
I may be.
And I guess the sisters can carry it here.
Also, sister, are you selling your book tonight?
Yeah, I'm going to, just... Okay,
somebody did
A lot of this information put out in a pamphlet. I mentioned a pamphlet where I got this information from, in addition to Richard Keith.
Do you have anything in your book about diet?
About diet?
So cold at night.
This is, well, I mean, I have some of that in here. But
How much is your pamphlet?
okay, this is the book. I only have one copy, but I published it in 1981 after doing the research in 1980.
Well, sell it to me.
It's called, I'll sell this last one. Okay, it's called the Pineal Gland and Melatonin. And in this idea, 3.5 years of research to getting the information out of Wayne State University Medical School and then putting it in lay people's terms. So what this does is give you a basic fundamental idea about melatonin and melanin and what it does. Okay? And this is $5. And also, I have some information on melanin and how it helps us to be orientated, because I showed you the oldest map in the world. This is a book called The African Roots of Mathematics. In it, I put together all of the research that I had done for the past 7 years from the different places in Europe where you can't get books on African math, but they have them in those European museums. I took the information and brought it together and put it all in this book called The African Roots of Math. And I talk about the Egyptian equations, their different math books, their method of calculations, because they had specific methods of calculations that was different from ours. And we are incorporating some of this information in the school system in Detroit Public Schools. So I've got about 5 of these and one of this one. So I do have some order forms, you know. So
you're going to sell me the pamphlet?
This is $20. This is $5.
And I just bought it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Oh, so
Yes.
I have a question.
Put something in the store here, sister.
I am going to speak to Sister Ma about that.
Like in school, like when taking like calculus, and the Europeans do the problem the long way, and I'm asking the professor, you can do it this way, the short way.
See, that's the melanin,
like
brother. That's
they
your
be like
melanin.
spaced out, don't know what I'm talking about. I'm like, you can do it this way.
Say all that right.
You know what I'm saying?
Calculus. Well, wait.
I don't think you ought to show.
Well, whites have a different language. When they speak to us, they speak in a different language, mathematics. And a lot of times we can find a shortcut to those math problems because we've got that melanin, and because that
any problem.
any problem, right? Because that pineal eye is an information processor. It's a computer. So if we've got that high advanced computers in our head, we're going to find those shortcuts for mathematics that the professor takes years to deal with.
Yes, right.
Well, one of the things you said in your title today. I'm sorry.
You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
During your research of melanin, did you find anything about keloids? Because black people develop keloids.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about the keloids, but it's the melanin that does develop those keloids. That's the unique way our skin heals.
And it's the same root word as acid, OID.
OID, yes. Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it might be some relationship about starters.
It could be. It could be. But I know that vitamin E helps to heal that. When you place it on that scar, it helps to heal the scar. Yes, raw food vegetables. Yes. Sister.
What I was hoping was that your title said should be you. And I think that we all address that. Sometimes we come together and we share ideas, but we don't move from one
problem solving.
Yeah.
See, that's why, the sister asked that as the last part of the question, what do we do with this? And that's why I said we take this information and we use it to solve problems, to enhance the quality of our life, and to create something new. When we got a problem, we got to say, well, what is it that I can fall back on about the melanin, about the melatonin, that can help me to solve this problem? All we got to do is just start thinking. Yes.
Going to sleep.